Hello, you all. This is Z with Unlocking Greatness Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And for those watching the YouTube channel, thank you for taking the time to watch. And please remember to subscribe and click the notification button. I want to jump to a very serious topic. I keep getting a lot of comments from people asking me, Z, how do you hear from God? And I've seen that across many of my social media channels. I've gone to God with this and asked him, how do I address this? And the only little hesitation that you might see is that part of me feel like, well, man, it's different for every person. And I don't know how to tell you how to hear from God. But then God put it in my heart to just share my own experiences. So I want to talk about how do I hear from God? I'll take it from that angle because, no one can kind of argue with my point of view in terms of how I hear from him. But I sincerely pray that it motivates and inspires you and helps you. So I want to start off with one passage in Jeremiah 29. We all know Jeremiah 29:11 that says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. Then you will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. I will be found by you, declares the Lord." So I just want to start with that one. If you have not seen my video, listen to my podcast on Seek God First, or if you've not seen that YouTube video, I strongly encourage you to listen to that one because I go into great detail about how I was just so angry and frustrated in life and with so many things going on. I honestly felt like I was going to go to jail, to be quite honest. I was just that mad. I felt like I was just going to explode because there were so many things going wrong in life. Oh my goodness, from with my kids to my marriage to finance, I mean, just all of it. And I just thought I was just going to lose it. And I just could not have another day of dealing with all of that stress and pressure. And then God has the audacity to tell me to seek him first. And that's the video where I talk so much about how I was so offended when I, was in one of my little Bible study groups and some of the women in the group were like, Z, there's such power in meditating and sitting before God and letting him fight your battles. So I don't want to go through all of that because that's already in that particular episode. But I detailed that episode about how upset I was because I thought, how in the world can I sit and meditate or I don't know, just sit with God silently and let him fight battles or whatever and meditate and focus on hearing his voice when I don't even know the direction my marriage is going because of all the hell that we're going through. Or I don't even know if my son is going to make it because he's fighting for his life in the hospital. I don't even know what's going to happen with my finances. I don't even know what's happening with this or my mother's health. I mean, all of it was happening all at one time. I had lost one or two best friends, people that I thought were close friends of mine, and found out that I'd been betrayed by one of them. And literally, all of it at one time in my life, I felt began to come crashing down. And the very thought of seeking him first angered me. It actually angered me. It made me upset. So listen to that episode about Seek God First if you haven't seen it. I'm going to pick up from that episode, if that helps, because I want to focus specifically on how do I hear from God, because those are the messages I'm getting quite a bit. And some of those messages are spent off from the podcast I released, I believe it was yesterday or today, I can't remember. And that one was on, I think it was on my testimony part 1. And I shared some very intimate things in terms of when God spoke to me so clearly, things that I'd never shared with anyone else. And so if you've come from those 2 episodes, this one will make sense to you now. So that was a long introduction, but I just pray that God gives me the wisdom to speak clearly and honestly, and that what I'm about to share helps you. So it's pretty simple. There's nothing major to it. There's many different ways that I feel that I don't even want to say position myself to hear from God, because I really think it's just an anointing and a grace that he pours on us my personal opinion. But one of the things is, you all know that I sit in my closet quite a bit. And I started doing that many, many years ago when I was going through some really, 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 really bad things in my life, specifically with my kids and in my marriage. And someone had told me, they said, Z, have you ever seen the movie War Room? And I've never seen that movie to this day, but they said, oh my goodness, you remind me so much of that, because I just basically sit in my closet and just talk to God and cry out to him. And I still do that to this day. So here's what that looks like. And hopefully this can help some of you who have been asking me over and over, what do you do? I just sit. I go in my closet. I turn the lights out. I actually kneel on the floor and sort of prostrate myself before God. Sometimes I just lay flat on the floor, or I'll just kneel. For some reason, I cover my head. I didn't start off doing that initially, but I'm not saying you have to cover your head. I want to make that clear. That's just what I do. There was a point when I was praying to God, and I felt in my spirit an unction, just an unction that I'm on holy ground and that my head need to be covered. And so since that day, and that was years ago, I always have some sort of a covering or something I'll put over my head. And I actually have a couple hats that I just put myrrh and frankincense on. So I have the aroma, just the aroma of the environment and the smells that were present during the time when Jesus physically walk this earth. And if you know anything about, I'm sure you've read your Old Testament before, those were some of the most common scents. And so I sought out to get some pure little things of myrrh and frankincense. I forget where I even ordered it from, but my elder at my church, the teacher of the elder at my church began to talk to us about that, and anyway, he ended up helping me get some, but you can pretty much get it anywhere, I think. So I just have that aroma going. I cover my head. I put like a whole blanket over me, I just kneel down before God, and a lot of times I just breathe and I just say, okay, God, I start confessing my sins, whatever it is I've done wrong for the day. I pray, the Lord's Prayer. And many times I just ask him to guide me. And I just say, Lord, what say you? What is it that you see in me that needs to change? What is it that you have been trying to tell me today that I'm not listening or I'm not hearing? What message are you putting in my heart that you want me to share with your people? And I'm not going to lie to you. I wish I can say I hear from him every day. I wish I could say I hear from him every week, and that's just not the case, at least not with me. I know there's some people that say they hear from God all the time, and, I don't know, I guess that's great for them if God speaks that often to them. But that's not always the case. For me, there's a lot of petitioning and going before him. Remember that passage that talks about, oh my goodness, God, help me to remember it, where the lady kept wearing out the unjust judge. She kept going to him with her request. And then finally the judge is like, look, she's just going to wear me out. Let me just grant her request. Remember Jesus told that parable about the lady? I can't think of exactly where it's at right now. I know it's in the New Testament, but I should have had the exact passage written down. But I always think about that, how he gave that example of how we just basically need to wear him out, just keep petitioning and going before him. So there are some things, you guys know that I have a son with a chronic medical condition. He's been in the hospital most of his life. He's, oh my God, preparing for a transplant, and there's so many things going on. So I'm always going to God with that petition before him. And so there's a couple things that I'm consistently always praying for. And then I'd say 90% of my time when I'm sitting and quote unquote meditating is just in silence. There's a form of meditation, and I think it's called gospel meditation. I hope I got the name right, because I have a friend that actually teaches classes on this stuff. Her name's Virginia. I'm definitely going to have her on as a guest on the show right now, because she's actually doing a whole series on meditation. And I told her as soon as that's done, I got to get her on the show, on the podcast. But I know that one form, and this is one of the things she taught me a long time ago, that you can just literally look at a passage. And Kathy is the other person, so it's Virginia and Kathy, both of them taught me that you can just look at a passage, meditate on a passage, say it over and over again, pick it apart, and let it become a part of your heart. So that's one form of it. Another form is, visualizing a story or something in the Bible, like putting yourself in the story. So when Jesus was crucified, putting yourself on the scene and experiencing all of it, and just being in that moment, feeling what he must have felt, listening to the cries, feeling the air, the weather, just being present in it. That's one form of doing it. I think for me, because I've had so many, oh my God, so many hardships and so many things that's happened in life, a lot of my meditation, to be quite honest with you, is I think through when I was between a rock and a hard place, like when we were homeless, when I was a preteen. I've talked about that before. Or when my mother, went through so much, abuse when she was younger, or just some of the hardships I've had, whether it's, like I said, with my kids or my marriage or whatever. But sometimes I'll go to those dark places, those really, really dark places. And I literally would just sit and take God with me. I invite him into the room, and I know this may sound off. This is just what works for me. Just want to make that clear. This is what works for me. I'll go back to those moments or the present times if there's something I'm really feeling and dealing with. And I literally picture Jesus, like his spirit, coming and sitting next to me and just sitting on a bench and looking at it together. And I'm bawling, I'm crying. I do that a lot when I'm thinking through some hard times or what have you, or some difficult or painful moments. And I just let him sit with me. And that's it. I just let him sit with me, and I look at him and he looks at me. At least I feel that in my spirit, and we look at the situation together. And I think I said in a previous episode, sometimes I literally say to God, I almost feel like the Holy Spirit is grieving with me. And I just say, God, it's okay. It's okay. Because there's been some areas of my life that's been some long suffering, but I don't want to go into specific details because, I want to protect the privacy of my family. But when I say long suffering, some things I've been praying about to change for a long time that still has remained unchanged. And sometimes I sit with God and I just say, but it's okay, God. And I just let the Holy Spirit sit with me with it, if that makes any sense. And I literally just look at it with him and I just bawl. And so sometimes I do that. 90% of the time, I really am just silent. And in my spirit, and this is the piece I want to talk about, because I recently just started doing a series on some of my other social media channels of just teaching people to remember passages from the Bible. So 90% of the time when I say I'm just sitting in silence, somehow there's passages that I remember that just recites inside of me, like 2 Timothy, I think it's 1:7, for I did not give you a spirit of timidity, but a spirit of power, spirit of love, and of self-discipline. Or I'll think through passages that talks about the fruit of the Spirit in Galatians 5. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, self-control, blah, 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 blah. Or I'll think through the passage, I think I shared this, I think it's in Matthew 6:25 through 33. Hope I'm saying the right passage, but about do not worry, because that was one of my mom's favorite passages. And then I would just recite that. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. And I literally would just walk through the entire passage. And that's called having passages written on the tablets of your heart. And the reason why I think that that's important, at least for me, for meditation, is because I'm able to sit there and read my Bible and remind God of his words, remind him of his promises as I sit with him. I know that may sound odd, but I literally sometimes, especially when I'm fighting in the spirit, when I'm fighting and I'm like, God, you said that you would da-da-da-da-da. You said that you da-da-da-da-da. You said if I call on you, you will. Sometimes I literally go into a mode of like fighting in a good way, but fighting to remind God of what he said and who he is. So that's why I think it's also important to have passages written on the tablet of your heart so that you can have something to stand on. The other night, and I do this often when I'm just sitting for a while, in my closet, I often start off on the floor just kind of, I don't know, some kind of way I always end up crying about something. But I often end up standing up. And mind you, my closet is completely black. And I'm looking straight ahead. and I'm petitioning with God for something, or like, let me give an example. Gosh, I can't believe I'm sharing all this, but anyway, Lord, use me. I'm trying to think of an example that won't offend somebody, but petitioning, for example, I'll just say this. One of my children, 3 of my kids are adults, and the other one, he'll be an adult next year. So I have adults. I'll just say, if you're a parent, you know that not all your kids, no matter how you raise them, they may not always right then and there want to serve and follow God. It may come later in life. And so I have a child in particular that I constantly petition before God. And I say to God, now you may say, Z, I don't think that's good to say, but this is what I say. I say to him, God, I need you to find mercy inside of yourself to save him. You love him more than I do. So you're going to have to find that mercy, and you're the source of the mercy. So you need to find it within you, and you figure out a way to show mercy and to save him. I mean, sometimes I just get indignant, and I don't think it's in a disrespectful way. I really don't, because he is the source of the mercy. And I'll say to God, no, he doesn't deserve it. He's not acting at all as if he deserves it, but neither do I. I didn't deserve your salvation, and you found a way to rescue me. So you figure it out, and you find a way to find that mercy inside of you, and you need to figure that out and find it, because the mercy resides with you. So sometimes I get, bam, just like really, I feel it's a righteous anger and a respectful anger, but it's a petitioning to my Father. And then I'll tell him, I don't have any other gods to go to. I kind of talk to God as clearly as I'm talking to you now. And I said, God, where else can I go but to you? I don't have any other gods. There are no others. There are no other gods that have your power. There are no other gods, as far as in my life, that exist. You're the one. And if you don't make it happen, it won't happen. So where am I supposed to turn to lay these requests except to you? Did you not teach me that I need to continue coming to you as the woman did with the unjust judge? Did you not teach me that I need to pray continuously and not give up? And so sometimes I just remind him of what he said. That's why I think it's so important that as best as you can, you get in your scriptures and you learn your passages. And you don't have to know a lot. You don't have to know a lot. I just happens to, by the grace of God, the teacher of the elders of my church many, many years ago started a Sunday class that I go to every Sunday. I literally would cut a trip short to be back in time for this Sunday class. So in all the years he's been doing this, I can count on one hand the sessions I've missed. I think it originally was just for like the ministers and the elders and all of those people. And I was just like, can I come? And they're like, Z, come on. So I just kind of got my butt into class, and I've been coming for many years. And we spend literally not only days, weeks, but sometimes months just on one chapter or one book of the Bible. And he's the kind of person that, has traveled to see Jacob's well, and he comes back with all of these amazing biblical findings. And anyway, I won't get into that. I feel I'm drifting a little bit, but my point is that I stay under the teachings so that I can learn my Bible and the passages. And there's still so much I don't know, so please don't feel like, well, Z, you know so much more, and that's why you're able to. No. You can just have one passage. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not be in want, or Jesus wept. I mean, it could just be one. I don't care about that. You need to figure that out, what works for you. My point is that I think that it's important to have passages written on the tablets of your heart, because even in the middle of the night, you can be under attack from the enemy, and you got to be able to, rebuke the enemy. You have to be able to, call out at the name of Jesus Christ, every knee will bow, I want to drift into something else right now, but I'm going to try to stay on target. And the one thing I just want to say on this, and I'm going to talk about this in another episode, is we still need to continue to teach our children. And even though we may not think they're listening, they do listen. And I'll just leave it at that. I think that's very important. I am going to be doing a podcast episode on when God says no. That's really, really important for me to talk about, because there's so many areas of my life that you all still don't know about. As I'm speaking into this camera, this very moment, in real time, I have a son in the hospital fighting for his life. In real time, I have situations going on in my family at home right now. In real time, if you were to ask me, and I thought about this the other night, because I said, man, my listeners are still just getting to know me, and they probably think, things are going all handy dandy. But in real time, if you were to ask me, if you were to say, let me put it like this, because I want to protect my kids. But if you say, I bet you she's probably never dealt with this particular issue with one of her kids, I would say to you, you're probably wrong. I'll just leave it at that. We deal with a lot of issues, especially when you have 3 adult kids and one more heading into adulthood. I'll just leave it at that. It's not that everything is going all fine and dandy. The only reason that I'm able to keep my head up, to even in this moment continue to grow, continue to reach out, serve, help others, is this meditation, this prayer. I like to call it anointing, but this precious time with God that has to take front and center of my life. If you followed me around an entire day and you saw all the things that come to me and that I'm dealing with, keep in mind I run a company as well. That's a whole nother subject. You would say, how does she even find the time not only to be praying at night in a closet, but sitting on the camera talking to people? It's the grace of God. That's all it is. Now, my staff knows, because they see a lot of things that happen. They're like, Z, my God. And I personally feel the closer you get to him, and the more, I'd like to say, the oil flows, I think in many cases the more battles you have to fight. But when you know who you are in God, you're not stressed about it. You're not worried about it, at least as much. So anyway, let me get back to the topic, which is, how do I hear from God? Some of the practicals, because I had a couple people say, Z, can you just give me practicals? Is as I said before, I think I talked about this. If I didn't, I'll say it now. I play my gospel music. I love me some gospel music. I won't even start naming people, because I'll probably miss out on some of the people that I listen to all the time, and I don't want to miss a certain artist. But sometimes if my day's so busy, and you know how it is when you're trying to pray, but your mind's racing, you're thinking through the kids or dinner or work or I don't know, whatever. Sometimes I have to, for a while, just play songs to get me in the presence of God. So I literally will play my gospel music and my songs, sometimes as I'm sitting in my closet, many times as I'm getting prepared for that. I don't think I've turned the radio on in my car, my goodness, probably in 10, 12 years, maybe. I just thought about that, because I'm always playing from my phone or whatever device, my gospel music. But I like to get myself centered with that. I like to just sit with God, and I like to just rest. Now, this may surprise you. There's many times I fall asleep. I used to feel bad about that. I used to wake up and be like, Lord, I'm so sorry I fell asleep on you. God, I'm so sorry I fell asleep on you. I don't apologize anymore about that, because there's something comforting about, for me, this is just for me, sitting in a dark closet, which most people are afraid of a dark closet, and I used to be, by the way, but knowing the power and knowing who I am in God, knowing that I'm protected, to be able to sit in a dark closet and, as my minister would say, fall asleep in my Father's lap. Sometimes I'm so doggone tired by the end of the day, and I'm sitting in there, I'm waiting to hear from him. I don't hear nothing, by the way, for a while. I find myself waking up, and I'm like, oh my goodness, how many hours have I been in here? And then I just pick up where I left off. But there are those distinct times when God does speak, and I absolutely love it. I think someone asked me, a couple people sent me messages saying, but how do you know when you're hearing from them? And I think I addressed this before, but I'll address it again in case you missed it in one of the episodes. But I said, for me, I have just sort of there's 3 things I look at. One of them is he'll never contradict himself. He would never contradict himself. So when I feel that God has spoken to me or told me something, I always initially match it up with the scriptures to make sure that that's what I'm hearing. He'll never contradict himself. So that needs to be a warning. If you feel God is ever telling you to do something that's against his passages, that's against his word. That's just my 2 cents. I personally think that's a warning. So He'll never contradict himself. Two, the second thing that I look at is normally he calls me higher or brings something to mind I didn't think about, or challenges me to do something that I really don't want to do. And if you watch the testimony part 1 that says God speaks, I gave 3 clear examples that I hadn't really shared with anyone, in which God spoke to me and challenged me to do something that was so outside of the norm. I didn't even want to do it. I was mad that he even told me to do it, but I wanted to test it out and see if this was really him talking. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing is he just doesn't let up. You know, kind of like with this podcast, I keep bringing this up as an example, when God spoke to me and made it clear to me, and to be honest, gave me this vision. That's a whole nother subject, but of me speaking on the airwaves, with headphones on and a microphone. He literally gave me this vision, and I'm like, God, what do you want me to do? What is it you want from me? He didn't let up. He did not let up with me. And so sometimes you just can't shake it off. And you're like, okay, well, I guess I need to do what God is telling me to do. So I hope that some of that helped. I want to kind of wrap this up with talking about my mom. Before my mom passed away, and you guys know I lost my mom, it still feels like yesterday. You talk about an amazing woman of God, my goodness. But before I lost my mom, I remember when she began to lose her vision. She wasn't able to see so well. And my mother, oh my goodness, you talk about an amazing woman of God, a minister. This woman just, everything about her. You can't even have a conversation with her without her talking about God. That's just how my mama was. But anyway, I remember when my mother began to lose her vision and she couldn't read her Bible anymore. And this is before she lost her ability to speak and then lost her ability to hear and then right before she passed. But I just remember thinking, and I think I told this story in my very, very first podcast episode called What Are You Going to Do with the Time You Have Left? So if you've not listened to that, please watch it or listen to it. But I remember when my sister and I went to visit her, and we thought we had her because, we know our passages, and we're going to throw some new stuff at her. And we literally would just sit and just talk about God like all day with my mom. And I just never forget when one time we went to her room, and she hadn't been able to read her Bible for at least a good year or two at that point, at least. And we thought, we're going to be able to teach her a thing or two. And so, we're going through the scriptures, and everything that we're talking to my mother about, we're taking her into Romans, we're taking her into Revelations, we're taking her into da-da-da-da-da. Not only did she know it, she was telling us, wait, back it up, baby. Go back to chapter 2 and read what happened when the Apostle Paul, da-da-da-da-da. Read when Abraham, gave a tithing to, I don't know, Melchizedek or somebody. She was just, and we're like, that's not true. That's not in the Bible. Baby, go to such and such. And literally, by the time we were done, we were so whipped with the word. And my sister and I laugh about it to this day because we said, my goodness, this woman knows her Bible. And that's what I mean about writing it on the tablets of your heart. I know I'm drifting a tiny bit away from how do I hear from God, and I'm going to come back to that. But I would love for you to get to a point, and I'm trying to get there myself too. I'm not saying I've arrived, where we know these passages and these biblical stories so well, it's just written in the tablet of our heart. So when we go before God, we're really able to truly be in meditation and prayer before him. True meditation, where we're reciting and going through the things he's taught us. Remember, it says how faith comes from observing the word. There's truth in that. That's why I always go to, I wasn't planning on doing this, but I'm going to do it anyway. So if I've been talking too long, you can just turn off, but I'm going to keep this going. But I think it's Psalm chapter 1, one of my favorite Psalms. And I recite this all the time. Blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, or stand in the way of sinners, or sit in the seat of mockers. But his delight is in the law of the Lord. Check this out. And on his law, he meditates day and night. Now listen to this. He is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in the season, whose leaf does not wither. Whatever he do, he prospers. And I think the King James Version says, whatsoever he doeth, he shall prosper. And I used to look at that passage and be like, well, wait a minute. What do you mean whatever he does prosper? That's not true of anybody. And so I look at passages like this, and when I'm sitting before God, I don't know. I don't even sometimes think of it as meditating. I think of it as just being with him and being one with him with just thinking about some of the stuff he says. So this goes back to when I told you how I petitioned before him. I'll say to him, God, you say whatever I do, I'll prosper. You say that blessed is the man that delights in your law, and that the man that meditates on your law day and night, that he's like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields his fruit in season. I said, God, you said that. So that's a part of that meditation when I'm sitting with him. Sometimes I'll think through the passages that I've read or that's in the tablet of my heart, and then I slowly push it in front of God to remind him of what he said. And then I sit in silence and I'm like, Lord, what say you? What say you for me? So I hope that this helps. It's different for every person. I have some friends who are like, Z, that don't work for me at all. I love to be out in nature, walking around. Some people say, nope, I just love to exercise. That helps me. Or I love cooking. That just, for me, unites me. You have to do what works for you. I don't think there's any one way. But I did want to address the topic of how do I hear from God, because I've heard so many people asking me, how do you hear from God, Z, and how do you know when he's talking to you? Those are some of the main things that I do. I go to him with all truth and honesty. I cover my head. I kneel before him. Don't feel bad if you can only do that for 5 minutes or whatever, because initially 5 minutes was a real long time for me. Now it's nothing for me to spend hours, literally nothing. I feel so at peace just sitting. And sometimes I'll meditate on a passage. Sometimes I'll petition with him. I feel like I'm literally wrestling with him, and I'll fight with him on, but you said, and just reminding him. And then sometimes I'm so weak, I just stand and I just say, Lord, remind me of who I am in you. I think I did that last night. I just stood in my closet and I said, God, who am I again in you? Oh, that's right. You are my shepherd. You are a deliverer. That's right. You are a way maker. That's right. You are the one that can change hearts. That's right. And then sometimes it just comes to me and it's just welling up in me, and I'm standing in my closet, probably looking, oh my goodness, if you guys saw me. And I'm literally I go from a weak spot to who am I in you, to proclaiming who I am in him. And I just stand there. I have my hands held high. Sometimes I picture the cherubim, and I don't even know if I should go into all of that, but hopefully you guys are aware of the ark of the Lord in the Old Testament, and the cherubim, the seraphim, the angels that I don't know if I don't want to take this down the wrong road, but I picture the ark of the Lord sometimes literally there, and I picture being in his presence, and I picture the singing and the praising that's constantly going before God, and I just raise my hand up as though I'm present with them, and I just let my spirit worship. So sometimes I can just do that and be standing for a long time, and I'm just drenched with tears, just literally just standing in the presence of God. So that's what I do, and I pray that this helps you. I really do. I'm very interested in what works with you all. Please comment and share with me some of the things that you all do. One thing I do want to say before I end this, I do read all messages. I have seen a number of people ask me, hey, Z, you talk about this passage, talk about this, or read this book and comment on this, or I think you need to talk more about this, or I think I even heard somebody say, you're kind of a little soft. I think you need to be talking more about, people need to repent or they're going to go to hell, or I've heard people say, I think you need to da-da-da. The reason why, and I mean this with all sincerity and with a good heart, the reason why I don't go left and right and pivot my messages to all of that feedback is because of what I just talked about. When I go before the presence of God and I'm meditating and I'm listening to what he wants me to talk about, I can only do what he tells me to do. So please don't feel offended if I'm not speaking on a passage you want me to talk about, or if I didn't, and I'm so sorry if I didn't accept, whatever, you sent me a book or something or to read. I really have to stay centered on where he wants me to be and listen intently to how he's guided me so that I can come before you as authentic as I possibly can, covered by his grace and speaking only what he's telling me to say. So anyway, I love you all. I pray that this helped. Again, please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already done so. Thank you for listening to my podcast. And I just pray that some of this has helped. I might do a second part to this because I'm sure there's some other things that I missed that I wanted to talk about. But I do pray that this helped you to just center yourself. And that's another thing. Get rid of all the distractions. I definitely turn my phone off and put that away. Oh, that's another thing. A number of people have asked me, why do I not subscribe to other people, to their channels, to their, I don't know, their Instagram, their Facebook, their TikToks, their whatever. It's not meant to be offensive to anyone at all. I have to stay centered on the messages that I feel that God is telling me. And I have to be able to go into platforms without a lot of distractions. So please, please, please do not be offended if I've not followed you back or subscribed to you or what have you. When I go into these platforms, I go in with the mindset of let me say what God told me to say, let me post what God told me to post, and let me get out. So that's another thing I want to talk about is that it's very important to be focused and to be intent on what God wants you to do. And that is another message I feel God gave me from the times of praying and meditating and being with him. So anyway, this was a long one, but I love you all. I pray that this helped. This is Z with Unlocking Greatness Podcast. Bye-bye. Hi, everyone. This is Z again. Do not forget to hit the like, subscribe, and the notification button. Bye-bye.